Stephen, trying to wrap my mind around where our political system is at. You've been obviously observing not only the economy and what the central bank is doing. Any signals from Finance Canada? Chrystia Freeland, our finance minister, she had her budget just a few months ago, and there was a lot of talk about whether there was going to be a so-called fiscal anchor or not. Where do you see things going with the Finance Department of Canada right now?
Well, there's certainly a lot of pressure coming from academics for the Finance Department to adopt some type of fiscal anchor, as you call it, or fiscal rule, rather than having all spending kind of be discretionary parliamentary discretion. I'm not optimistic about that, frankly. I don't think any politician wants to tie their hands when it comes to spending, because there's a constituency for spending, and it really is going to take a kind of a legal, a new legal regime to get Parliament to tie its own hands when it comes to spending, and I don't see that happening.
Yeah, it's been really tough for parliamentarians, frankly, to even ask the right questions because Parliament as an institution, there was part of the lockdown, a lot of Parliament was virtual, so the oversight functions were really tough to do. The Parliamentary Budget Officer has calculated just in a recent report that unless there is a change of position or a change of stance, that Canada will be in deficit until at least the year 2070. Does that sound sustainable to you?
On its face, no, it's unlikely to be sustainable, because even though the Canadian government can borrow in Canadian dollars, no one, including people in Canada, are obliged to hold Canadian dollars. And that ultimately is the discipline on government spending, is when the marketplace decides that it no longer wants to hold the sovereign currency because its value is questionable, and that really ultimately has been the discipline on any government that's tried to implement MMT. So the short answer is I don't think it's sustainable, but how do we get to a sustainable position is really the issue.
Yeah, I'd love to get thank you for that. I'd love to get your sense of the interplay between what's going on in the United States and what's going on in Canada. You've got a great vantage point for that with your work at Western Washington University as well. So obviously the Biden administration wants to have a multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure program. That's what they're pushing through Congress right now. Is there a difference in approach with the Biden administration versus the Canadian government, or is it basically the same kind of approach to these things?
Well, besides the obvious difference that in the US you have a congressional system where the party in power really has to negotiate at some point unless they have a clear dominant majority, which the Biden administration does not. I would say that if anything, the debate in the United States about government spending is probably in some ways less critical than it is in Canada. I think Canadians are doing more questioning about the deficit than people in the United States are doing, and that's a change from certainly what I've seen in the past.
Is there any advantage in the United States because they are, in effect, the world reserve currency? Does that help their situation?
It certainly does, although again, there's a real question as to whether that can persist. I mean, at one point, Great Britain had the world's reserve currency, and over time lost that privilege, in part because of economic policy. So sure, it's an advantage for the US now and going forward, but reckless economic behavior could change that.
We're speaking with Stephen Globerman. He is professor of international business at Western Washington University and also an adjunct professor at Simon Fraser University, just about the current fiscal climate. We started talking about modern monetary theory. We've veered away from that, but it's a very interesting discussion. Stay with us as we conclude our discussion.